I grew up in a home with 6 kids. I was one of 6, and my mother was very emotionally abusive, physically abusive, and mentally abusive. She was an alcoholic, and she would take us to this babysitter's house, and he was 2 doors down from my grandma, and my grandma would favor my sister, and my sister went over to her house, and I would stay behind at his house. And every time I was, it's so hard. Every time I was there, he would rape me. One day, I just went to my sister and I said, God told me I needed to tell what happened to me. And she told me that she didn't believe me and that I was lying and I needed to stop lying. So I told my mom that night, and she just slapped me across the face. And I went to school, and I was just sobbing, and my teacher asked me, Brianne, what's wrong? And I whispered it in her ear, and I just told her, and they called me down to the principal's office, and I had to wait there, and I knew my mom was coming, and I knew I was gonna get in trouble, and that was the day that my siblings and I were taken away, and we were put into foster care. A couple months into foster care, I left there, and I went to go live with my grandma for a little bit with my sister. And after, it went well, but then after a couple months, my grandfather started touching me. And that was whenever I told my grandma. And she called me a slut and told me that I couldn't live there anymore. Stop. And I was kicked out, and I was put into different foster homes, and I was shuffled around. I went to home to home to home, back to group homes, to shelters. And every time, just with like this little plastic bag, that's all I had. You lose everything. And I was so sick and tired of being abandoned and neglected and hurt. And I could not wait to turn 18. So when I did, I signed myself out of the system. I was done. And I just went crazy. I got my hands on anything that I could. I started seeking after men for validation and love and to feel wanted. And I entered into a relationship with 2 men. And I would party with them, and I would get drunk, and I would do anything I could. I would pop pills. I was living a life without conviction, and it was such a scary place to be. My life was just in chaos, and then I found out I was pregnant. I'm 18, I'm homeless. I couch surf on whoever's couch will take me, and I find out I'm pregnant. I was supposed to leave for the Marines 6 months later, and you can't go when you're pregnant. So I made the decision to have an abortion. We tried to walk by them and tried to get away, but this woman kept looking at me, and I looked at her and I tried to avoid eye contact, but I couldn't. And I got inside as fast as I could. And I'm just in and out of tears all day. And I have the abortion, and I hear the vacuum, and I hear the pain, and she's just digging, and I'm just crying, and I just couldn't believe that my life had gotten to this point. And this is where I was at this moment. And I walked out, and I just felt so empty and so broken inside. I didn't even know if my life ever could get better from this moment here. And when we walked outside, it was such a beautiful day. And that protester, that lady, was still outside. It had been 8 hours. And I just couldn't believe that she was still standing there. And as I walked by her, she grabbed my arm, and I just looked at her, and she said, God still loves you. And I just couldn't believe that someone would say that to me, knowing what I just did. That night, I went to a party with my friends. I don't even know why I went. And there was just something different. I sat down on the couch and everyone's partying and they're drinking and they're dancing and I'm just looking. And I just felt, this isn't my life anymore. This is not what I want to do. I just remember praying to God, God, I need you. I'm done. I'm so sick of the life that I've been living. I'm done. Take it all. Take it all away. And he did. I'll never forget the feeling, just the lift off my shoulders. So I started going to church more often. I was baptized, and I finally felt like I was part of a family for the first time in my life, with all the people that were around me. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. I left for the Air Force, got married to my husband, the one God had waiting for me. And a couple months later, my coworker found out she was pregnant. She told me that she was gonna get an abortion, and it was gonna be on Mother's Day weekend. And the pull inside of my heart, I just couldn't let that happen. I finally just sat down with her and I'm like, Jasmine, I had an abortion when I was 18 years old. And it was the hardest thing in the world to go through. And I remember the feelings of being scared and not knowing what was gonna happen. But I want you to know that God loves you. No matter what, God loves you. And whenever she decided to have him, it was the most beautiful moment in my life. And I remember thanking God so much. And it was right then that I felt in my spirit him just tell me, this is why. This is why I went through everything that I did. God can redeem you. God can bless you. God can change your life around from the past, that you don't have to live in the past anymore, and that those chains can be broken. Just know, by the blood of the Lamb and the words of your testimony, you will overcome. And you never know who you will help in the process.